Father's Day is a first-person horror game that follows multiple characters as they search for a missing child. The game is available on Steam. Atmosphere. There's a dreamlike quality to certain parts of the game, especially the apartment, which is reminiscent of the PT demo with its shape-shifting nature and visual similarities, but it's the sound design with all its whooshing noises and insectoid jittering that makes part of it feel impossible to be happening. The story theme of a time machine in the early game also helps reinforce a foreboding, electric feeling, a sense that nothing good can come from it. Through multiple scenarios throughout the game, there's the apprehension that something bad is going to happen, and it hangs in the air. There's several tonal shifts throughout the game as the locations change. The outdoor area's atmosphere is considerably weaker as it feels more grounded in reality, and at some point you're granted a night vision camera, and this exponentially raises the tension of the outdoor areas as you now can't see very far ahead of you. A lot of the game has random foreboding things lurking around in the environments, like strange clown statues and figures made of wax, and the places that you visit have a general run-down feeling, but a strange kind of functionality like they were used to do terrible things in, and a lot of apprehension derives from it. The atmosphere is good, but due to some other aspects of the game, it's never allowed to become great. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. Father's Day uses an interesting variety of scares to varying success, from the sporadic jump scares which sometimes catch you off guard or startle you, but also sometimes feel cheap and needless. There's also the rare occasion that either through execution or timing, the jump scare just doesn't achieve much of anything, and some even come across as awkward and hurt the immersion. The game uses scripted events like changing things when you look away or objects moving around in the background, but it's hit and miss how well these work out because of camera framing or timing. It does, however, use a really nice selection of sound effects to make sounds like things are coming up from behind you in the darkness, or unseen footsteps moving around in an area you can't get to, which was nearly always unsettling. Whilst most of these work pretty well alongside the spooky atmosphere, the game also tries its hand at having a chase section and an enemy stalk the player during the later stages, both of which were executed poorly. The chase sequence was confusing because there was no indication that it had even started, and the game's slow movement pace made it seem awkward. The enemy that also stalks the player is very limited in its animations and AI pathfinding, leaving it either staring at you impotently or swinging its mallet at nothing. When caught, the death animation is also extremely lackluster. The entire enemy section ruins the immersion completely and is by far the worst part of the game. The scares do have a few effective moments, but there's a lot of things tried here and very few of them are truly effective. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. There's a nice selection of music tracks, but the one most commonly used is a dissonant, whispery, ambient piece that's unpleasant to hear. It sounds icy cold, but deep, infinite, and on top of it, the game layers various sound effect tracks to add ambiance, from unsettling animals or humans mumbling and groaning, to an ongoing sound that resembles insects jittering that bounces around headphones like something entering and exiting your brain. The sound effects for the most part are pretty realistic and effective, though there are some that are a little out of place. Effects like footsteps and environmental sounds that lure and cause distractions to the player are very clearly stock effects, but used very well in a very carefully crafted sound environment. There's voice acting for the clown enemy later in the game, and it laughs constantly and honks its horn a lot, which is annoying, and sometimes his lines of dialogue interrupt each other because of timing issues. But the enemy AI and pathfinding has already made it ineffective, so this doesn't really change very much. The reverb and directional audio are very good and well implemented. Overall, the sound design is one of the game's strongest points despite some minor blemishes. That's 2 Harry Masons. Gore. There's a few gory things in the game, like blood puddles and severed hands. They're realistic enough, and these small things neither add nor subtract from the experience. The game does have some bigger moments, but they seem to be done to express a psychological condition, and they're easy to dismiss despite being quite impressive. That's 3 Harry Masons. Story. The story follows multiple characters in the wake of a missing child report. There's a lot going on in the story, and I really struggled to understand the importance of some of the plot points brought up because of the way they were told. There are a lot of grammatical problems that are probably due to translation errors, but there are a lot of them in a game that primarily tells its story through chapter transition text, notes, and character dialogue, which is also done in text, meaning that it's extremely noticeable, and the complicated story seems almost nonsensical, with a lot of things like time machines to advanced virtual world theories and memory alterations being butchered through grammatical errors. Even the parts that are understandable were difficult to make sense of because of the multiple characters you play as, with some of them being protagonists and others being antagonists, which only muddies the water further. It sounds like an interesting concept, but it's difficult to really make sense of any of it, making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. It's unsurprising to learn that the game was made by the same developers as Summer of '58, because once again the sound design is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but it really struggles with a lot of different things and suffers from trying to accomplish most of them. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I used the time machine, I did not ruin time, and advise you don't either. There will be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Let's go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.